Okay, if you've ever felt like you're putting your podcast out there and just shouting into the void, this one is for you. We are going to break down a real-world case study from Mabul Hassan. This is a step-by-step strategy that took a show from basically zero to real, consistent, organic growth. We're not talking theory here. We're talking about real results.
So, does this whole scene feel a little too familiar? You pour all this time and energy into creating what you know is great content. You hit that publish button, and then crickets. It's such a common and honestly a super frustrating feeling for creators. You just know your show deserves more of a listen. And that's exactly what we're going to tackle. We're cutting through all that vague, fuzzy advice out there to focus on how a real strategy was put into action and how it actually worked. We're going to show you the before, the after, and every single crucial step they took to get from A to B.
So first, let's set the scene. To really get why the solution worked so well, we have to understand the problem, right? This is where our case study kicks off, with a podcast that was completely, totally stuck.
And honestly, the situation wasn't pretty. We're talking super low downloads, almost zero audience engagement. And because of that, it had no ranking on Spotify or Apple. It was basically caught in this vicious cycle. Without any listeners, the podcast was invisible on the big platforms, which meant, of course, that new listeners had no way to ever discover it.
Now this right here, this is where things get really interesting. See, the first instinct for so many of us when something isn't working is to think, oh, my content must be the problem. But in this case, Mabul Hassan figured out that the content was actually fine. The real problem, there was absolutely no promotion or optimization strategy. Think about it. The best show in the world doesn't matter one bit if nobody can find it.
And that single realization, that aha moment, leads us straight to the solution. A clear, super actionable 5-step strategy that was designed to build an audience from the ground up, the right way, organically.
So here it is, the whole framework at a glance. It all starts with optimization, then moves into research, then promotion, content repurposing, and finally engagement. We're going to walk through every single one, and you'll see how they all lock together to create this really powerful system for growth.
All right, first things first, you got to build a solid foundation. Before even thinking about promotion, the podcast had to be optimized so people could actually find it. This meant doing simple but crucial stuff like putting relevant keywords into the episode titles, rewriting the show description to be way more compelling, and making sure it was listed in all the right categories on the listening apps. So what this all boils down to is this. Optimization is all about making it dead simple for the right kind of listeners to stumble upon your show when they're searching for something new. You're basically telling the algorithms, hey, this is what my show's about, and this is who it's for.
Okay, so the podcast is now discoverable. The next step was to go out and find its people. And that meant doing some deep audience research to zero in on a specific niche. The big questions were, where do these people actually hang out online? What Facebook groups, what subreddits, what communities are they already a part of?
And once that research was done, the promotion could finally begin. But look at how targeted this is. This is not about just spamming your link everywhere and hoping for the best. Nope. It's about strategically sharing episodes in specific Facebook groups, jumping into conversations on Twitter, and posting in Reddit communities where the target audience was already talking. And this quote right here, this is pretty much the golden rule of the whole strategy. The goal was never to just drop a link and run away. It was about providing real value first, answering questions, being a helpful member of that community, and only then, when it was relevant, sharing the podcast as a helpful resource. Step 4 is just all about working smarter, not harder. Instead of constantly having to create brand new content from scratch, the strategy was to go back and mine the existing episodes for gold. They pulled out short, punchy clips and key quotes, turned them into shareable little social media posts, all designed to make people curious and drive them back to the full episode.
And finally, step 5. This is where you nurture that audience you're starting to build. It means replying to every single comment, asking questions to get people talking, and just actively focusing on building a real community and a genuine connection. This right here is what turns someone who just casually listens into a true, diehard fan.
So that's the 5-step plan. But the real question is, did it actually work? Okay, let's get to the good part and take a look at the results.
The transformation is just night and day. The podcast went from being completely stagnant, with literally no visibility, to a show with a consistent upward trend in downloads. And you could really see the audience engagement starting to tick up. The strategy was definitely working.
And this chart just makes it so clear. You can see that steady, month-over-month growth. And notice, it's not some crazy viral spike that just disappears the next day. This is the good stuff. This is sustainable, compounding growth that you only get from a consistent and targeted effort.
Now, before we wrap this up, it is so important to talk about the reality of what it takes to get these kinds of results. Because spoiler alert, it is not magic.
And this might just be the most important takeaway from this whole thing. The results we just saw did not happen overnight. When it comes to organic growth, there are absolutely no quick fixes. It takes patience and it takes persistence.
So, what did it really take? Well, it took consistency in applying the strategy day in and day out. It took having a proper plan, and it took being willing to continuously improve. But just as important is what wasn't used. No fake plays, no bots, no shady shortcuts. This was about building a real audience, not just faking the numbers.
Look, if you remember just one thing from this entire breakdown, please let it be this. Real, sustainable growth is always built on an organic and consistent strategy. There really is no other way to do it.
Which, of course, brings us to you. Looking at this 5-step framework, you've got optimization, research, promotion, repurposing, and engagement. What's the one thing you can put into action right now? What's that very first step you're going to take to grow your own project?